I think back to when I was a young child, is seeing women fanning themselves like crazy, their face sweating, their glasses steaming up, and they're just looking totally flustered. That was my wow, what's going on? And then hearing women saying, oh, I'm going through the change. Women in the church, if you don't know, I'm going through the change. That's my awareness.
I knew about it because my mum was having hot flushes, but that's all I thought it was. I didn't realise there was more to it than hot flushes. That's all I thought about. Yeah, I didn't speak about anything like that sort of thing when I was growing up.
I look back now and lots of those women must have been going through the change or menopause, but it was never uttered at all. I remember when my mum started going through menopause, she had really bad hot flushes, and her and her sister. And I remember looking at them and thinking it was just so bad and wondering what they were going to do about it, but they didn't do anything because one of their friends had she had really bad symptoms. She tried HRT and she developed breast cancer. So they automatically felt that the breast cancer was as a result of the HRT. So for them, they were just never going to try it and never use anything to help them. So they struggled through and it was hard to watch.
It was a joke. You know, women took it as a joke, men took it as a joke, everybody took it as a joke, you know what I mean? You get hot. I took it as a joke. I thought, free heating. I don't have to put on the heating, you get what I'm trying to say. Made jokes about it, you know what I mean? But when you actually experience it, right, it's a different story, you know what I mean? Like I said, the impact it had on my mental health was unbelievable, you know what I mean? And, you know, the thing about it, it's like you don't want to accept it because we don't really look at mental health as mental health, if you get what I'm trying to say, you know, it's not. It's like, oh, pull out your socks and get on with it kind of thing. So it was an embarrassing moment, you get what I mean? To express that to my family or my friends or whatever, you know, that this is affecting my mental health and whatever. It's like, what do you mean it's affecting your mental health? You know, you're a mental health nurse. So, you know, should able to deal with it kind of thing. And, you know, and that bit was so, I mean, what really hit me hard because I thought I'm a qualified registered mental health nurse.
You know, I didn't really hear about menopause until I was like 25 or something like that. I know very little about menopause. I know that there is menopause within men, but I know it's more prevalent within the women, right? But I don't know much about it.
It's something that affects women kind of in their 40s. It's a hormonal change in the body. And I guess the symptoms that we always hear about are the hot flushes and the mood swings because of the changes that are occurring. It's a natural part of getting older, I guess.
I had a hysterectomy in my 30s and it was a total. So I went into menopause drastically. Nothing leading up to it. I didn't even know what was going to happen because nobody tells you anything about menopause. Nobody tells you when you have these things that you might be in menopause and what's going to happen to your body. So I had this thing and then about a month later after I'd had it, I was out walking. I remember I was in boots and this horrible hot feeling came over me and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going to die. It was winter and it was freezing outside and I remember taking my coat off and walking out of the shop because I was so hot and I thought I was going to pass out. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't do anything and I was stood outside boots and people were looking at me because I took my cardigan off, my coat off and stood in the freezing cold because I didn't know what was happening.
Nobody spoke to me about the menopause. Nobody even, well, I'm guessing there was some education about starting your periods at school, but there was no discussion in the household about starting your period. I remember I went to a friend's house, I'll not mention her name because she's still with us, and I started my period at her house. And I went home and told my mum, and my mum was fine about it, but she just reached up to the top of the wardrobe and got out the essential sanitary products. So she must have been expecting that it would happen for me, but she didn't explain that to me. But in terms of the menopause, no, I don't recall anybody talking about it. I don't recall, even now that I'm more informed, I've tried to look back to see whether I saw anything in my mother or in the household at the time, and I still don't. I don't recall anything.
No, not even in school. I heard nothing about it. No, I found out about periods when I started, and I thought there was something wrong with me. Then I was told by my mum saying, "Oh, now you can get pregnant if you go near a boy." So then I got scared. That's what I was told.
I got shunted into it very quickly. Yeah, so it wasn't as if it was like a natural change. It was happening, but not to the extent that I had started my menopause completely. But then when I had a hysterectomy and had my ovaries taken out, then it shunts you. You know, one day you go into hospital, the next morning you're a new person.
I lose things I'm thinking, but I can't think of the words I want to say, and that was happening at work. And I was doing a job, and I was quite capable of doing it, but sometimes I just couldn't focus. My mind just went, and I couldn't think of what I had to do and how things should be done. Simple things. And it's just as if you think you're losing your mind.
I think it's all a bit foggy because as women we have so many other things going on. So I had long COVID for a while, and I used to put a lot of stuff down to long COVID. But I think when I look back, some of those symptoms would have been menopausal. So so the brain fog was a big one. I think when I had COVID, I had a massive brain injury. I couldn't even have this conversation with you while I had COVID. It did improve afterwards, and when I got back to work, that slowly got a lot better. But I think when I was sort of up and running again and started to experience more menopausal symptoms, I was struggling to find my words. I was struggling to find my thoughts. I just wasn't as sharp as before, and I just put it down to being really tired, and then I just kind of leaned on the long COVID again. But I think on reflection, it was just, they were menopausal symptoms. And I think the key, like the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I was in the boardroom and I was just about to say something, and I'd had my hands up and I started speaking and completely forgot what I was saying. And it was awful, and this is in a live board meeting. And after that, I was just like, I need to do something about this. This is just not on. I can't continue like this. And I was thinking, can I carry on with this job? If I'm anxious about speaking, I can't continue. And a lot of women, and the anxiety in itself is another symptom. So you're anxious, you've got brain fog, your confidence dips, you can't do your job, and it just makes things worse. And then, you know, a lot of people end up leaving, a lot of women end up leaving.
Well, originally I went to talk about the menopause with the anxiety and all these different, like, leg pain, this pain, that pain, where I thought, God, I got to 50 and it's like I'm going downhill. You know what I mean? So I went to the doctors to talk about the menopause, because my sister says, Carol, go and get some HRT or something, because I could feel, you know, that angriness in me. Because my sister has that angriness, and she goes, them HRT work for me. So that's what I was going for. But obviously they did tests, and then it come out that I got high blood pressure, so no, they're not going to give me no HRT. But I could go back on the tablets I was on before, not for my mental health, but maybe for my mental health and well-being, but more for the menopause anxiety. So from last year, end of May time, I've been on them. Yeah, and I do feel a lot better. That things, I don't worry about anything anymore, but then I'm having to practice what I preach, because obviously working with cancer patients, you get to hear their stories, and I'm just saying, just wake up every morning and take it as a new day, and and so I'm thinking I've got to do the same, so that's what I do. I'm not taking on everybody's problems.
Oh yes, there's much more of a conversation, because since becoming an advocate and a champion, I kind of send information to the group chat. One of my sisters had fibroids, so having fibroids out was one of the things that can throw you into an early menopause. And so she's been without a period for a long time. But it's quite an open discussion. The younger ones, You know, like my daughter, she's about to be 40, and then I've got a couple of nieces that are just a little bit older than that. They're all now talking about, oh, I'm sure I'm in early menopause, I'm premenopausal, and you know, perimenopause, and I can feel some of those symptoms. So there's a lot more conversation, and I think one of the really good things is that the younger one, the boys, the younger men are talking about it as well now. It's an open conversation, and it don't matter whether it stems from a joke or if it stems from whatever. We just involve them in the conversation.
But I think we are very open about it. I don't think I'd ever had a discussion with my mum about this, even when she was having massive sweats and things like that. So I think that is key. That is key, just making it a conversation that you have every day. But then speaking to the men. You don't just speak to the daughters, speak to the sons as well. You know, they need to know what's happening. They need to appreciate just how serious it is. Because I think they think that things that affect women are quite trivial, and we're just, you know, we're overplaying it and we're just being extra and stuff like that. You know, but you know, that happens. But I think that education, especially for younger men growing up, I mean, older men need to know now. They need to know too, but I think for younger men, having that education growing up, they learn to, you know, identify things and support. I think one of the key things that I see when women come in, and because we don't have those conversations, they have no idea what's going on with them usually. They're struggling at work, they're arguing with their husband or partner at home. The most common phrase I hear is, and I just want to kill my husband, but he's the loveliest man ever. If I had £1 for every time a woman said that, and she's just like, I've got this, I've got brain fog, my skin's itching, I can't sleep, I've got hot flushes, and I've got really bad anxiety, and I've never had it before. And they're like, I know you don't know what's wrong with me, I don't know what's wrong with me. And you just sit there and you're just like, menopause. Have you ever thought about menopause? And that light bulb moment for that poor woman, because we don't talk enough. So yeah, I think we just need to talk more.
And what's nice is that there's a lot more talk about it now. People are a lot more open about sharing their experiences, sharing how it affects their day-to-day life, in and out of work. So there's greater awareness, and that can only be a good thing.
It's natural and it's part of life, but sometimes you do need help with these things that just happen. It's like for years we've treated 15-year-old girls for their periods and said, you know, it's just periods, you know, you're going to get pain, it's okay. But when they're in bed for 2 days with period pain, that's not normal. But we normalise a lot of stuff that happens to women. So I think just helping them to recognise what's normal and what's not from a very early age will be key. And then just letting them know that when they get there, or to the age of menopause, that, you know, just to let them know what happens. Just talk about my experience, talk about, you know, some of the symptoms that, you know, people go through, the impact that it has. Just giving them the confidence to talk about it at work, because a lot of women don't raise it at work and they're struggling, and then they end up leaving because there's no one to support them, even though they have such a massive female workforce. It's just getting the message out there, empowering women to say, look, this is what's happening to me. I need either medical help, or I need therapy, or I need adjustments at work, because it is a recognised characteristic now. So it's just giving them the words, because sometimes they will have an experience with a GP or something, and it shuts them down, and then they just keep going. And you know, you don't want to just exist, you want to live. So if there's anything we can do to make that better, then, you know, they should have a chance at that. So yeah, just making that 15-year-old girl aware from 15 that if she thinks that something is not right with her health, then she will open her mouth and she'll say something about it, and she'll do the same when she gets to menopause.
Listening. I mean, it's always good to listen. Listen to what they are saying, kind of start to read the situation, notice where struggles are happening, issues are happening. Ask questions, but ask the questions from a place of curiosity and a place of empathy, showing that you genuinely want to understand, so you can be in a position to provide the support that might be needed. And also doing your own research. I think sometimes we can, whatever it is, put the onus on the person going through the issue to educate us. But I think if we can kind of educate ourselves, even though only a small bit, then that can kind of show that we are genuinely interested and we genuinely want to offer support rather than relying on somebody else to do the heavy lifting. So
I think we need to talk about it. We need to just have it out in the open so that women talk about it, they acknowledge that it's going on, and we get ways to help them. You know, there are loads of things that they can do to help without HRT. If people don't want to take HRT or they're a little bit cautious, there's talking therapies, there are sometimes antidepressants that can help to regulate things. There, herbal remedies, all of those things. The herbal remedies for me worked really well at first. I think I started taking red clover and it just helped. It helped with the hot flushes and it helps me to be a little clearer in my thoughts and stuff. So it did really well for a long time. So, there's so much, people take sage, even primrose. There are loads of things that people can try without going straight to HRT. I guess you can find anything on the NHS website. So anything pertaining to women's health, you will find there. And I would say choose your sites carefully. So the NHS website will have information on any condition. And it's all fact checked. It's been through, it's been reviewed by people, so we know and trust the information on there. Patient UK is another site that's been checked and thoroughly, so the information that you get from that is really accurate and it's really useful because they don't just give medical information. There's stuff on therapy, there's stuff on acupuncture, there's stuff on herbal remedies. So yeah, Patient UK as well. The Royal College of Obs and Gynae have lots of patient information leaflets as well on women's health. So those sites are really good, but choose them wisely. So I wouldn't go to too many because then you get into some niche ones with forums and things come in that haven't really been sort of, not sanctioned, but just haven't been peer reviewed. So it's not something that you may advocate. So it's just to be very careful about what you look at. But those sites, those trusted sites, are probably the best ones to start with.
As an end to this film, I wanted to just think about the menopause as a powerful journey. A powerful journey, it brings changes to our bodies and emotions, and it can even change our identity. And it's not always easy. But we don't walk it alone. In our African Caribbean community, menopause is not always talked about. We're talking about it much more now. Many of us grew up in silence about the menopause, but now we're breaking the silence with strength, pride, and honesty. We want to thank those who supported us, our partners, friends, children, and the men in our lives for standing with us and learning with us and showing us love, patience, and care. And we also want to honour our transgender brothers who may face this journey too. You are seen, you are valued, and your experience matters. Menopause is not the end, it's a beginning. A time to reconnect with who we are, to grow into our freedom, confidence, and wisdom. We are strong, we are rooted, we've faced the storm, and now we bloom. The next chapter is full of power and possibility, and together we will rise. Thank you.